Iron Maiden is about to make a massive lineup change that is going to change the course of heavy metal history and produce arguably one of the top 10 heavy metal albums of all time. 666, the number of the beast. Next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of The Metal Dude Abides. Tonight, we are going to discuss one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. We're going to take an in-depth look at Iron Maiden's classic, The Number of the Beast. We're going to rank all of the 8 songs and talk about its place in metal history. Plus, we're going to take a look at the top drummers. We're going to look at the top bass players and the top guitarists from 1982. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into The Beast. Before we get to the rankings, let's get this out in the open. Iron Maiden's The Number of the Beast is one of, in my opinion, one of the top 10 heavy metal albums of all time, and is also a perfect album. And by my definition of a perfect album is everything, every song, every track on this album is at least good to great. So even though someone has to finish number 8, it doesn't mean it's a bad track or doesn't mean I don't like that song. All of it is very good. The reason that this is one of the greatest albums of all time is that there are a couple of good songs on here. But as far as I can tell, 6 go into the great category, and 3 are no doubt Hall of Famers. So let's go into the track with that in mind. Let's start out with number 8. Coming in at number 8, the very first track, Invaders. In some ways, this is a little bit of an odd circumstance, in that Invaders has all the trappings of what I would consider a great opening track. Number 1, it's fast. Number 2, it's aggressive. And keep in mind, you're introducing us to a brand new lead singer in Bruce Dickinson. More on that later. And this is the perfect vehicle to show off your new singer. So by all accounts, this is a great opening track. However, it is a bit odd in that this album, side 2, is considerably stronger than side 1. And it seems as though the opening to side 2, The Number of the Beast, would have been a much better opening track in the fact that it was also one of the first singles and one of the first videos that you put out of this album. So it's a strange, like when you start looking at the greatest albums of all time, sometimes there's like little nitpicky things that do, confound you. This is one of those. It seems to me like this album, the way it's constructed, is almost backwards, and that side 2 should be side 1, and side 1 should be side 2. Nitpicky, I know. But this is a very good opening track. One of the things that we talk about with the change from Bruce Dickinson to Paul Di'Anno is that Bruce Dickinson, while Paul Di'Anno was more of a stoic figure, more of a like I'm tough, I'm cool, kind of gave off that kind of vibe. Bruce Dickinson is like an energy bomb. Like he's just hyperactive. He's just running to and fro. He's jumping up and down. He's throwing his arms in the air. One of the questions that people are always asking about Iron Maiden was, and we'll never know the answer to this, but would Iron Maiden have been as big a band with Paul Di'Anno than they were with Bruce Dickinson? And of course, we can't possibly know the answer to that because Iron Maiden makes their choice right here. But I will say, as the Iron Maiden moves from the small clubs and more intimate settings, Bruce Dickinson's energy and his charisma as a frontman is perfectly tuned to going to the bigger arenas and even stadium shows. Bruce Dickinson talks about this a lot, about how he has over exaggerated movements because he knows he's got to engage like 70,000 people in a stadium. So Bruce Dickinson is actually the perfect frontman to move from the small clubs to the stadiums. And here we get introduced to him with the song Invaders coming in at number 8. You are number 7. Okay, kind of a play on words here from the song. Coming in at number 7 is a song called The Prisoner. The infamous intro to this is the beginning of that television show. I'm guessing again it was over in England. I've never personally seen this show. The star of that show, Patrick McGowan, is seen going, "I am not a number. I am a free man." Maniacal laughing, boom, into the song. So it has a very cool intro. Also, man, Steve Harris, like, we're going to, you almost take Steve Harris for granted because he has been just doing such great work over decades now. But man, when you hear his bass back on this album, oh my word, he is just going to town. This track has you just listen to the bass on this thing and you're going to love it forever. So cool intro, very dramatic, nice bass work, nice drum work by Clive Burr. This is a very good song, and it comes in at number 7, The Prisoner. As I said in the opening, we have 2 very good songs on here. Everything else on this album is great to Hall of Fame. The next 3 songs I consider all to be great. Some of my favorite heavy metal tracks of all time, and some of the very best that Iron Maiden ever produced. But number 6 is going to come with a little bit of a controversy as I select the song Ganglands. Steve Harris famously has regretted putting this song on the album. As the story goes, they were looking to do a B-side for Run to the Hills. And so one of the songs would be a B-side to that track, and the other would make the album. Iron Maiden chose to put Total Eclipse as the B-side to Run to the Hills. Thus, Ganglands made the final cut and made the final, was on the album. But ever since then, Steve Harris has publicly denounced the fact that he feels that they made a mistake, that Ganglands should not have been on Number of the Beast, that Total Eclipse should have been. Now, far be it from me to argue with Steve Harris, one of the most brilliant musicians of all time, about the music he creates. But honestly, I think they made the right call. I love Ganglands. And while I've listened to Total Eclipse, and it is another very good song, they were just producing banger after banger. They could have gone, this could be a 9-song, still be a perfect album. But I much prefer Ganglands. I love the drums of Clive Burr. I think this might be my favorite drum song on the entire album. Clive Burr, if you don't know it already, my goodness, what a tremendous drummer. One of my all-time favorite drummers. He kicks butt on this song. And I love it's all about, kind of the mafia and Dead Man, Tell No Tales, and the drums are kicking. And I don't know. I'm guessing all you people watching this are Iron Maiden fans. Am I crazy? Go down in the comments below. Ganglands, right? Over Total Eclipse? I may be in the minority on this one, but I just think Ganglands not only belonged on that album, it fits perfectly between Run to the Hills and Hallowed Be Thy Name. Obviously, I've put it in the great tier. So coming in at number 6, Steve Harris, trust your first instincts. Ganglands is a real killer. Coming in at number 5, Children of the Damned. oh boy, is this a great song. In a recent interview with Bruce Dickinson revealed that this was inspired by Children of the Sea, a Black Sabbath song, and one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs, so it makes sense that I would love this song. But I've been kind of beating around the bush, so let's get this out of the way. I love Paul Di'Anno. I love the Paul Di'Anno era of Iron Maiden. I love the albums of Killers and Iron Maiden. However, I do believe that the move towards Bruce Dickinson here was the right move. It was right at the time, like I said, where Iron Maiden was moving from a more intimate club culture to like big arenas, and Bruce Dickinson just brings so much energy and so much passion, and of course, great vocal dynamics as well. Here's a good example of just a song that he just knocks it right out of the park. So it pains me because I love both eras of Iron Maiden, but I do believe that this was the right move for Iron Maiden's career. Moving out of those intimate settings, moving into the larger arenas and stadiums, you need a singer that can just take that his charisma just fills up large venues. And Bruce Dickinson is definitely that. We're going to talk a lot about his voice in the coming years, but right now, we're going to talk about him right here. Children of the Damned, one of his absolute best works, and it comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, 22 Acacia Avenue, the second song in the Charlotte the Harlot series. And of that series, this is absolutely my favorite of those songs. What a great song. This song is, by all accounts, this is a progressive metal song. It has all the signature changes. It has 4 distinct parts to this song. It goes well over 6 minutes, but it doesn't feel like a progressive metal song because the lyrical content and the story behind this captivates your attention. Those 6 minutes fly by. It feels like about a 4-minute song. I was actually kind of surprised when I sat down to look at this song in depth that it was over 6 minutes. Like, wow, I didn't remember it being that long because it really doesn't drag at any point. Like I said, lots of changes. They mix it up nice. There's a great story, and there's a great moral story to this in that here's poor Charlotte. She's living a terrible lifestyle, and at the end, the hero whisks her away to a better lifestyle. It's a pretty cool song. Highly recommend. One of my all-time favorite deep tracks of Iron Maiden. But one other amusing thing about this song is a couple of years later, Iron Maiden maybe makes the definitive version of this song in Live After Death. And it's so funny because Bruce Dickinson interjects with the crowd in here. So every time I hear this song, whether I'm listening to it on the studio or live or wherever the place may be, it says, everybody's got their vice. And I always just yell out, speak to me, Hammersmith, because that's what goes on in the live album. It's just kind of funny. Every time I hear it, I interject the Bruce Dickinson vocal points from Live After Death. And again, if you want to hear this song, to me, the studio version is fantastic, but go a couple of years into the future and check it out on Live After Death. It is at least as good, if not a little bit better. It is amazing to think about, but this album has not 1, not 2, but 3 easy, no-brainer, Hall of Fame level songs. And it starts here. Coming in at number 3, The Number of the Beast. Keep in mind, this album came out in 1982. We didn't have the internet back then. And I, if you've been a follower of this channel, was living in a small rural town in New Mexico. So I didn't really have access to a lot of good hard rock, heavy metal music on any of the radio stations or anything at the time. So whenever we left our little community, I would always lobby to, hey, can we put on the rock station? So on this fateful night, we are headed for Albuquerque, New Mexico. I begged my parents to turn on the rock station, and that night I hear it. This song, The Number of the Beast, and I was blown away. but I had no idea who it was. Because at that point, the only Iron Maiden I'd ever heard, I owned the very first Iron Maiden album with Paul Di'Anno, but this sounded completely different. So after the song's over, the radio station says, that's the brand new song from Iron Maiden. I'm like, Iron Maiden? That didn't sound like Maiden. What's going on? Well, I'm in Albuquerque, which is also a place where I could buy my music. Picked up the album, brand new, took it home. One of my all-time favorite albums ever since. And yeah, that intro is just iconic. And something that I found out just recently. I've been listening to this album for obviously well over 40 years, and I always thought that the intro was being said by Vincent Price. But no. Turns out it's a voice actor by the name of Barry Clayton, because Vincent Price was just too damn expensive. He carried too heavy a price. Bad jokes aside, I had no idea. Anyway, so Barry Clayton gets through with this, this verbal piece where he's talking, he's quoting from the Bible, and then it just breaks into, Bruce Dickinson has that, it's heavy, but it's like almost like a whisper where he's like putting the eeriness into this song. And then of course he just starts belting it out. I'm like, wow, this is far and away better than anything I'd ever heard from Iron Maiden at that point. So you got to check this out. I'm sure everybody's heard it a million times, but it is an absolute brilliant, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. Number 3, The Number of the Beast. Coming in at number 2, Run to the Hills. Run to the Hills is one of the most beloved and known heavy metal songs of all time. If you've been to an Amon Amarth concert recently, I'll tell you a quick story. I'm at this Amon Amarth concert, and there's, there was a couple right next to me. We were standing on the floor waiting for the Amon Amarth, and they said to me, "Are you into this music, or are you just here with your kids?" And I said, "No, I love Amon Amarth. I like heavy metal." And they kind of were like, "Oh, great, good to have you on board, old guy." But anyway, a few minutes later, Amon Amarth hits the stage, and they start playing Run to the Hills, Iron Maiden, blaring over the speakers to get the crowd hyped, and the crowd's going nuts. And everybody in that crowd is singing this song. Everybody knows word for word. And I thought to myself, this guy that was wondering about, what's this old dude doing at the Amon Amarth concert may not realize I was there when this was a brand new song, right? That's why I still love metal 40 years later, songs like this. And yet, it's not even the best song on the album. That's incredible. I hear a lot of people, I think they're just trying to do hot takes or whatever, but there's some people out there that are like, man, Number of the Beast might be a little overrated, may not be as good as people, after further review, Run to the Hills is the second best song on this album. And yet, if I go to an Amon Amarth concert in the year 2024, I'm going to have an arena full of people singing this song because they all know it and they all love it. The other thing I would say is this also, one of the things that Iron Maiden did to really elevate themselves was they understood how to make videos. And they put out a video for this song, Run to the Hills. And again, this is the first time I've seen Bruce Dickinson, so we talked about the first time I heard him. But anyway, he's got the whole leather armband going. He's got the I think it's called a leather brace. I don't know. There's probably a technical term for it, but it's got the studs and everything. And he's running around, and the band's just going crazy. And they've got the silent movie clips in the background just for a little humor to kind of break it up. I believe this was the first greatest heavy metal video of all time. Like, at that time, MTV was kind of dominated by the skinny tie bands. Kind of, that was the era of that music. There was a few heavy metal bands that were kind of putting out like semi-live stuff. But this song, like the first time you saw it, like when you heard Bruce Dickinson for the first time, you fell in love. When you saw this video, you're like, wow, this is something new. This is something special. I think not only is this one of the greatest songs of all time, but in 1982, this was that first great Hall of Fame level music video on MTV that then brought the whole genre up in MTV's eyes. This is long before Headbangers Ball. This is long before Metallica's One. This was the beginning of something really special. This is a Hall of Fame song. This is, there's just not enough superlatives for this song. And yet, as I say, there's another song on this album that's going to rank number one. Coming in at number one on this album, and maybe across all of the Iron Maiden collection, Hallowed Be Thy Name. What a fantastic song. Let's once again say that you hire a new lead singer, Bruce Dickinson, and he has to prove himself. Because again, Paul Di'Anno was a fantastic frontman. Can't say enough good things about Paul. But when you listen to Bruce Dickinson on this song, you just like, yeah, this guy is one of the all-time great singers of all time. I love the slow build. It starts off, for those of you who may not have heard this song, this is about a fella facing death row, his final moments. And it's clear from the song that in this case he is innocent, and he's wondering where it all went wrong. Why was he forsaken? He's an innocent man going to his death. And so the song starts out very heavy, slow, sad, intense. But as all good Iron Maiden songs does, it starts building and building up to a crescendo. And Bruce Dickinson sings, like many people will say, right here, the very first album, this is Bruce Dickinson's finest moment, and I'm not going to disagree with that. He introduces himself in one of the most spectacular ways possible. We talked about Children of the Damned. We've talked about, well, all these songs Bruce Dickinson does great on. But by far, maybe Bruce Dickinson's tour de force, his signature moment, and maybe the number one song in the history of Iron Maiden, comes in today at number one, Hallowed Be Thy Name. Now, before we finish up today, we also have to have some unfinished business about the best drummer, best bass player, and best guitarist of 1982. I have a feeling Iron Maiden might score in some of these categories as well. All right, best bass player in 1982. This is an easy one. Steve Harris. Like, you can't touch Steve Harris through this stretch. Like, he revolutionized bass. The way he plays almost like a lead guitar on the bass is fantastic. Now, I will say that there is some competition and it's a name that doesn't normally get put into that upper echelon of bass players. But Peter Baltes is doing some amazing stuff for Accept during this stretch as well. In particular, the entire album, Restless and Wild, is good, but I really like his bass work on a song by the name of Neon Nights. Really good stuff. If you're unfamiliar with Peter Baltes, he is currently, I believe, working with the band Udo, U-D-O, and he has just done some amazing work. So Peter Baltes, not a household name, but doing some great bass work as well. But at the end, Steve Harris just is going to be the best bass player for a while, at least till Cliff Burton shows up on the scene. Then we're going to get some real throwdowns there. And on drums, you know who it is. It has to be Clive Burr, one of my all-time favorite drummers. You know why this Iron Maiden album is so unbelievably good, because this right here is the absolute best Iron Maiden lineup of all time. And unfortunately, we only got it for one album. I wasn't there. I hear rumors. I hear both sides of the story. I wish Steve Harris would not have got rid of Clive Burr. As great as Nick O'Brien is, and he is one of the all-time great drummers, there's no doubt about that. I do wish that we would have got a little bit more time with Clive. Again, I don't know. It's just a damn shame, because Clive Burr is a fantastic drummer. And he gets some pretty good competition as well. Stephen Kaufman from Accept, another Accept guy, because you listen to the stuff that they're doing over again on Restless and Wild. In particular, one of the greatest songs in the history of heavy metal, we'll be talking about in a couple of episodes. And many people consider the first and greatest speed metal song of all time. We're talking about Fast as a Shark. Like, as good as everybody is on this song, check out the drums. Stephen Kaufman, another name that doesn't get a lot of credit, isn't one of those household names, but both him and Peter Baltes, we'll be talking a lot about them in a couple weeks when we talk about that Accept album. But Clive and Steve, they're going to edge them out. But it wasn't a complete and utter romp. And as we always do, now let's talk about the top guitar work of 1982. Our first nominee, we just got through talking about it, Fast as a Shark by Accept. Take a Bow, Wolf Hoffman. This is one of the greatest songs of all time, and instrumentally, it is pristine. You can't have one of the greatest speed metal songs of all time and not recognize the musicians that play this. It is phenomenal. I recently saw an interview with Wolf Hoffman saying he really didn't understand just how big of a pioneering moment this is for heavy metal. They were just, horsing around, but they came out with an all-time great. Nominee number 1, Fast as a Shark by Accept. Coming in at number 2, Electric Eye by Judas Priest. One of the things that we often overlook is the talented guitarists who come in pairs. And in this case, we're talking about Glenn Tipton and K.K. Downing. Electric Eye is another one of those moments where the first time you hear it, it just blows you away. We're going to talk about this next week, but this song, one of the all-time greatest Judas Priest songs, and the guitar work on this is sensational. Forget about just the guitar solo alone. We also have the intro that comes in, the Hellion, and then, like I said, the masterful guitar solo of Glenn Tipton. This had to be in it. Coming in at number 2, Electric Eye by Judas Priest. Coming in at number 3, Gary Moore with End of the World. You may be familiar with Gary Moore. He was in the band Thin Lizzy for a long time, but went on to do a lot of great things. His solo career is legendary. This song has to be on the list because, like, for the first 2 minutes of the song, he's just shredding before they actually break into the song. It is incredible. So even though Gary Moore, not as heavy as some of these other bands, he absolutely knocks it out of the park here. One of the all-time greatest guitarists of all time, Gary Moore with End of the World. We've been talking about them, and here they are. Our 4th nominee, Iron Maiden with The Number of the Beast. The Number of the Beast was a controversial song. Anytime you start singing about the devil, you're going to rile some people up. But for all the intro, the dramatic reading of Revelations, and all the the vocals of Bruce Dickinson, all the controversy around this song, don't overlook the guitar work on here. Adrian Smith and Dave Murray really don't get the credit that they're due. And I think, again, it's because there is a dual guitar element here. Both of them have different solos during this song. This is one of their finest moments. There's a lot of great guitar work on The Number of the Beast. I believe at one point Guitar World made this one of the top 20 guitar albums of all time. So you could pick just about anything, but we're going to pick The Number of the Beast coming in at number 4. And finally, at number 5, a little bit maybe of a surprise, I'm going to go with the Scorpions and their song Dynamite. Matthias Jabs is another one of those underrated guitarists because, listen, Michael Schenker's the original guitarist of the Scorpions. He is arguably one of the top 10 guitarists of all time. Uli John Roth really had established his signature on the Scorpions for like a decade. So by the time Matthias Jabs comes on, he has to really work hard to put his name into that legendary status. And the Scorpions, in a couple of albums, are going to start getting a little bit more commercial. I believe that this album, Blackout, is Matthias Jabs' absolute best. I think this is his absolute signature moment, and he knocks it out of the park on several songs, but my personal favorite is Dynamite. So those are your 5 nominees. And the winner is Electric Eye by Judas Priest. Take a Bow, Glenn Tipton. Take a Bow, KK Downing. Judas Priest has some of the best guitarists going in the early 80s. And like many of these bands, you can pick several songs, but this is my absolute favorite. Judas Priest is going to go on a tear throughout the 80s and are still putting out absolute bangers to this very day. And this is right up there among the greatest songs that they ever produced. So congratulations to Judas Priest. Best guitar of 1982, Electric Eye. Now you're probably asking yourself about this time, who did the Grammys pick in 1982? And I'll tell you. They picked A Flock of Seagulls and a song called DNA. Now, right about now, you're probably saying, oh, he's going to just destroy A Flock of Seagulls. But I really am not. They're fine. However, if you listen to this song, DNA, it's got a catchy little bass groove going to it, a couple little flourishes on the guitar, but nowhere near the expertise of some of these songs that I just went through. I'll never understand how this is, the absolute best. The Grammys say best musical performance of the year. Now, I will admit to something. When I say best musical performance, all the songs I just showed you do have vocal elements to it. These are songs with great guitars, with great drums, with great bass, whereas this is truly an instrumental. And so I do put this caveat together that if we're talking about if to make the Grammys, the instrumentals can't have any vocals, well, then there's still some great outstanding work. Ulcer by MSG, great solo from Michael Schenker, no vocals. You've got 2 Eddie Van Halen numbers. One of them is called Little Guitars. The other is called Intruder. Like Eddie Van Halen just horsing around is going to beat Flock of Seagulls. And finally, Manowar puts out a song, William's Tale, where Ross the Boss gets out there and does the William Tell Overture on a guitar. No singing required. So whether you're looking for a true instrumental or a great song with fantastic instrumentals, heavy metal beats A Flock of Seagulls all day, all night, twice on Sundays. So once again, Electric Eye. And really, if we're talking about just a pure instrumental, I got to go with Manowar and Williams Tell. another fantastic song. So whether technically you can have vocals or not, doesn't matter. Heavy metal's got them beat on both sides. Once again, the Grammys completely ignoring some of the best music in the world of 1982. And that's our episode. This is the part of the episode where I tell you, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the little bell, do all the things that the algorithm loves for you to do. I would appreciate it. Small channel here. We're trying to grow our audience and make sure people are aware of all this great content. We come out with a new video every week on Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock Denver time, next week. So we talked about the best instrumental performances. We talked about the Number of the Beast. Next week, we're going to talk about the best vocal performances. And we're in the golden age of heavy metal singers. Like there's going to be some tough choices to make. But we're also going to be talking about another one of those maybe top 10 all-time heavy metal albums. But this time we're going to be talking about the great Judas Priest and Screaming for Vengeance. So you don't want to miss it. Subscribe so you will be alerted and you won't forget. And that's our show. As always, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.